Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today on my channel. I appreciate it so much. Make sure if you hadn't done it yet, you hit the like and subscribe button. We are going to look at cover plate dies. So I have a lot of these in my stash and I had always kind of struggled with what to do with them besides cutting them out and putting them on the front of a card. So I learned this technique and I feel like it really gives me a lot of options, especially with clean and simple cards. So I'm going to show you how to emboss this plate with a Spellbinders Platinum 6. You could use any type of die cutting machine that you have that will allow you to emboss. I've also used my Gemini Junior to emboss previously, but for this purposes, I feel like the Spellbinders Platinum 6 is very straightforward on how you can emboss these. So I'm going to take you through that process and then show you the rest of the clean and simple card. I'm going to do these layers forward and backwards. So we're going to need our purple plate, our brown tan plate, and our large base platform from Spellbinders. So this says exactly how you do this on the Spellbinders platform if you get confused, but you start with what you're going to make the impression of. Then you put your piece of paper. Then the tan mat, this is kind of a floppy, soft mat so that it's not going to cut. And then you top it off with this, which they call the embossing plate. So once you send that through your machine, here's what it looks like. Purple plate. There we go. Look at that. So you could use this as your background. You could go in and cut out all of these little banners. You know, it gives you the triangles and do like an inlaid die cutting without actually cutting through the paper. I really like using embossed panels for that as well. Today we're going to use it as our background. Okay, so sticking with the cover plate theme, I'm going to use this cover plate, but I'm only going to use the little balloons that come with it. I just needed some balloons because I wanted to make a birthday card that could be a masculine card. So I'm going to keep everything very simple on the colors, and also because I'm trying to create that clean and simple look. So I'm going to use these balloons for the next step. So I've cut my balloons out and they all have this little, almost like where the sparkly area is supposed to go, you know, that little cutout in the balloon, and that wants to fall out. So I'm going to use some tape, some double-sided adhesive, and keep that in here because I'm trying to do as easy of ink blending as possible. So I'm going to put those back in and then we're going to start looking at super easy ways to ink blend this. And I have two colors out here, but I'm only going to use one color. I'm going to use something borrowed. I had thought about making some green and blue balloons, but I really thought I'm just going to keep this card with as few colors as possible. So I'm going to only use the blue something borrowed. I'm going to use a couple techniques to make my balloons slightly varied in their color. So I'm going to ink blend this one, and then the next one I'm just going to take the pad of ink and squish it on there. So it's going to be a much darker balloon, but it's going to be the same color. Sorry, I needed a way to hold these little pieces, and this little triangle tray worked well to make sure I got my color there. So here's how I did the balloon. I just stuck it on the ink pad, kind of moved it around. You could probably do that with tweezers or just turn your ink pad upside down. But this gives you a much darker coat of it, and you can still use your ink blending brush if you need to spread the color around, but I did it a couple different ways just to try to get some variation. And I ended up liking these dark ones so much that I used probably more of the dark ones than I did the light ones. I used the light ones to come through in that area of, I don't know what we want to call that little balloon area that's got the little piece cut out of it, but that little sparkly area, I ended up putting some of the lighter ones behind it so that that area would be light. So basically you'd have a highlight in the top of the balloon and a solid color balloon on the front. So another tip I have for creating a clean and simple card is making sure that if you're using very few elements that they stick up and pop out a little bit. So you can use foam tape. I usually add several layers of the die cuts together to help make it sturdier. Just feel like that gives the card, if you're only looking at a few elements, you really want those to show up. I'm creating a simple sentiment for this, so I'm going to stamp black on white, and then I'm also going to layer behind this white strip that I cut out a piece of black. I feel like when you have a mostly white card, if you don't put something behind your sentiment, sometimes it just gets lost in the white. So I'll cut this out once I've got it done, and I'll add a black strip. So here's how that looks, nice and dark. I used the VersaFine Clair Nocturne. It's a very dark ink. And then I'm using some black cardstock here. You could cut your strip out and line it all the way around with the black. And I even looked at heat embossing on black for the sentiment, but it was a little too much black. So I'm just lining the top and the bottom, and I'm using my paper trimmer to figure out where I need to cut. I felt like that gave this card the best, I don't know, CAS look, I guess. Best clean and simple look. So here's how that's going to look. You see what I mean about just the strip of black on the top and the bottom? It's not something I do often, but with this card, I really thought it just looked great. So I'm going to put this across the bottom. Now it's time to start arranging my balloons. So here's what the final balloons look like. You can tell one of them, the two little ones, I stamped directly with the pads. They're a little bit darker than my ink blended version. And I'm going to find, I feel like adding a element that is not paper sometimes helps these cards. So I'm going to find some floss to put behind these balloons. So this is DMC cross stitch floss in black. So I think its color is 310 if I'm correct. I used a little bit of washi tape to hold some of these, and I also used just regular adhesive. You can use whatever you've got, and I'm going to make this like it's the string of the balloon. Don't worry that your string is creased like this. I'm going to pull this behind my sentiment to take care of that problem. So I'm adding some double-sided adhesive right now to hold it still. And then I'm going to adjust these strings so they don't look like this. It's not worth your time usually to go and try to like iron the string and make sure it's super straight when you can just attach it to another element and have that hold it for you. Okay, now I have all my strings attached, so I'm going to show you how I get these to lay flat and look like they're supposed to on the card. Okay, I wanted to zoom in so you could see I added some white highlights to my balloons. I did some little crosses and some dots, and I just think that gives them a little extra excitement. You could also do something, I thought it'd be kind of fun to do like a sparkle pin, but since I'm going for a more masculine looking card, the boys in my life do not like any sparkle on their masculine cards. So I'm going to leave it just to adding white highlights. I'm using some double-sided adhesive on my sentiment, and I'm going to stick these pieces of floss to the back, making sure that I get them arranged as I want on the back of this, and that will kind of hold them in place so they're not flopping around on your card. So when I remove the backing and put this down, I'm going to show you that you can still move your little pieces of floss. So I don't press it really hard in the center yet. I'm going to get it lined up. So let's put it on the card, line it up as easily as we can. I'm already messing with the strings just a little bit, but I'm going to mess with them more once I've got this done. I decided I wanted to cut the edge off this. So once I get it laid down, I'm going to do it lightly, just like that. Now, even though I've gone across these, I can pull on my long strings here, so I left them kind of long, and I can arrange them how I want them to be. So we've got our strings arranged, and then we can trim those off later, and you can trim the sentiment off the edge of it as well. So you've got lots of options, and I just wouldn't worry about those strings at all. And I deal with my strings before I actually stick the balloons down, just to make sure I don't need to move them around based on how things went. So I'm just going to take the double-sided adhesive off these and stick these down to the card. I did add a few clear sequins. I think I can get away with those on a masculine card because they're clear and they're just kind of a slight highlight there. So this is the end of this card. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had a great time with you. I've got tons of videos on my channel. Make sure and check it out. I have a lot of fun things like craft room tours, which if you're like me, I love to see a good craft room. So check mine out. Have a great day today. And if you're shopping today, make sure you click on the links in the descriptions. Those do give me a small commission, but it does not cost you anything and it helps support my channel. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Happy crafting. Bye.